Indigo cities could feed more than 2 billion people at the end of the century. If you want to be successful, you need to make people dream. The Indigo Civilization is, what could be cities on the water, on the seas and the oceans? France gets the second world's maritime domain in terms of size, and the first submarine one. I realized that we had very diversified waters. I mean, from Brittany to the Mediterranean Sea to Caribbean, Indian Ocean, Polynesia, Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon in the North Atlantic, etc. Because what you will achieve probably in the future in the Gulf of Mexico could be also interesting for the whole project. It's like a good wine. You don't make a good wine in 6 months. It takes time. To this finally surprising belief that it is possible to live on the sea in a great way. This is what I want to click, to make it acceptable and I would say sexy, like Jules Verne did with me when I was a child.
Welcome to the Blue Economy Primer, a New Orleans-based podcast where you learn from the experts the practical tools and solution sets that will empower your community to adapt and thrive in a new blue era of rising seas and economic discontinuity. In today's episode, we are speaking with Frédéric Pons, a French humanist and visionary who has dedicated his life to conceiving of a future characterized by a more harmonious relationship between humanity and our planet's fragile aquatic ecosystems. His philanthropic research and foundation is, in part, inspired by the work of the International Seasteading Institute, seeking to inform and empower a growing global community of seasteaders with clear tool sets and methods for communicating the interplay between the scientific, cultural, and logistic components of how regenerative water-based communities can survive and thrive in a world facing dramatic climatic and geographic transformation. Thank you so much for joining us on the Blue Economy Primer. The work that you're doing is really, really interesting to us at Deep Blue Institute. And after hearing about you through the Seasteading Institute, I was really interested to learn more about the Indigo Civilization project and where it's at and what you're doing and all that. So could you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, sure. So I'm French. I live at Brussels in Belgium. I left Paris, it was too crowded. I'm 49 and let's say my professional background is relates to marketing, especially within sports, luxury and digital technologies. So nothing relating directly to the ocean. Let's say that a year ago I had different companies and I closed one because, times are pretty tough with the pandemic. And during this period, I was wondering, what's next? And a few years ago, I almost died of a disease which is fixed now. But I was wondering a year ago, why does the universe save me? And then I decided to give more sense to my end of life. There was a question with my wife, especially about the fact: should we earn more money, or should we do something which is in accordance with our beliefs or values and so on? So I had that luxury, because this is a kind of luxury, to make that choice. And last March, I made a kind of coaching with still my wife, with my best coach, actually. I made an exercise thanks to which I defined potential topics on which I would like to work. And this topic, the Indigo Civilization, its genesis comes from my childhood. Indeed, I was born at Paris, but I used to live in the south of France on the Mediterranean coast during 5-6 years. And let's say that the beach was my garden. Okay, so I had that natural connection with the ocean because I grew up nearby the water. So when I was a child, I was fond of the books of Cousteau and also from Jules Verne, especially 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is an English title as far as I know. And it's still my favorite book in my life. I remember when I was 8, I woke up before getting to school and I read it. So it was very fascinating for me, and I thought that Captain Nemo was really clever. And so, well, I grew up in there, and then I had my professional career. And during this introspective phase, I thought, yes, this is really something in which I still believe. And you know, my wife told me to be crystal clear, Frédéric, you should take care, because normally you are a humanist, a philanthropist, and you're becoming the opposite. You may become an asshole. So there is an emergency for you to do something in accordance with your own value. And this is how it started. And then very quickly, I contacted the Seasteading Institute, because this is an organization I followed for 5-6 years, probably when they had that project with French Polynesia. It was a bit mediatized in France. At that time, I lived there. And so I knew them by this way, I guess. And then I thought, okay, this project is very interesting. Or should I get involved, or should I be useful? I don't want to create a new thing. Well, that was my belief at that time. So I contacted them to become an ambassador for them in Europe. And so I discussed with them, and I remember I asked one of their teammates, do you have a marketing document that summarize what you have in mind? Okay, I read Joe Quirk's book, which is very, very interesting. But this is a book, I mean. Something more detailed for my European contacts. Well, you know, I'm a marketer, so it's for me natural to get easy to read things and synthetic. They answered me, actually, not so much. And so I started writing something by my own, with the inspiration, of course, of the book, from Joe's book, and also from very, very various sources in France, in Europe, in Asia, etc. I started contacting people, because really this is a topic that it's driven by passion. So I really wanted to learn every day something. And so from the vision of the Seasteading Institute, finally, I fine-tune day by day mine, which is not so far away, but which is dedicated actually to my own country, which is France, because you know, in France, first of all, I love my country, because we have a wonderful history, a wonderful culture, etc. And unfortunately, by now, this country suffers a lot from many shitty things, like many others, I would say. But and I want to support also. To be useful also to my country. And then I investigated, and I realized that France gets the second world's maritime domain in terms of size, and the first submarine one. Wow, I wasn't aware of that. And so I said, yeah, this is very interesting for such a small country. How could it be? And then I investigated. Yeah, we have many, many islands. And on top of that, I realized that we had very diversified waters. I mean, from Brittany to the Mediterranean Sea, to Caribbean, Indian Ocean, Polynesia, Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon in the North Atlantic, etc. So a lot of configuration that are very interesting to investigate. And so the first discussions with other people than the guys of the Seasteading Institute were in the Netherlands, actually. I met Rutger de Graaf, and I went to Delft, nearby Rotterdam, to introduce my vision, my document, and to have an exchange with a very skilled specialist. And he told me, yes, this is really great what you have achieved, because this is more than a scientific approach, it's also philosophical. So I went back at home with a lot of energy, as you can guess. And then I went on like that, contacted people from, well, like throwing bottles in the sea. And finally, a month later, I was invited at the headquarters of the CNRS. CNRS is the second world's largest scientific organization, and the first in Europe. And so, you know, they created 1 or 2 years ago a foundation that can shelter other foundations. But when I contacted them, I had absolutely no idea about creating a foundation or anything. Just I was contacted people to have exchanges. And so I was invited, and they told me, yeah, Frédéric, this is very, very interesting what you propose, and this is relevant and consistent to our guidelines. So, I mean, in terms of general interest, in terms of the scientific perspective, and well, this is really great. But you alone, you are nobody. And what do you intend to do with that? And while I was discussing with these guys, I realized that, well, okay, this is okay. What I'm doing is good, but what should I do with that? And then I was wondering about the potential next steps. And finally, I decided to create a foundation, a sheltered foundation under the aegis of the CNRS Foundation, because I thought for such a project, which is very avant-garde, you need to keep your independence of thinking. You need to go on without any dogmas. If you start working directly with private companies from the energy side, from the aquaculture field, from architects, etc., naturally they will try to put what they have into the box. And I don't want that. I want to create the foundations of this project. So for me, the Indigo Civilization is split in 3 phases. The first one is a philanthropic phase driven by this foundation, and it is supposed to define, to modelize, what could be cities on the water, on the seas and the oceans, but with an holistic vision. I mean, not only architecture, not only energy, not only food, not only transportation, but all this part of a puzzle. How do we combine it to get a wonderful picture? Finally, I realized that there are so many solutions available already. But in science, I also realized that scientific people work in their own field, but in silos, and they don't, they talk a lot about interdisciplinarity. So in reality, this is not the case. And the purpose of this foundation is, without dogma, to think about all these numerous parameters and to prototype it in a small scale. Then the second phase would require more means, and it would be a private-public consortium to prototype the designs, I would say, but in waters, in the French waters. And then the idea is to prototype, to test, to make mistake, to amend, to make mistake, to amend, to make other mistakes, and so on. And then the third phase is a global deployments, of course, using all the private investment and private companies. But the idea is to create an expertise in France based on this huge resource, which is its seed domain, and then to work it, to fine-tune it in order to deploy it and to serve the whole world, to make it global for the small island states in the Pacific Ocean, for our own islands in France, but for many countries, actually, because we have the intellectual capacity, we have the playground, and it would be a waste otherwise to not achieve such kind of project in our country. So yeah, it's French driven, but of course there are other guys already. We are so the foundation is not set already, because I want to create, it's like creating a movie. You need, when you want to create a movie, you need a great synopsis, a great story. So I think we have it. You need the right actors. And then when you have the right story and the right actors, you can find the right producers, meaning the guys with the money. And more you have money, more you can achieve different things. And so the foundation will be the target is to open it mid of 2023, and to start the research phase from that during 3 years already. So we are 5 future co-founders, including Rutger de Graaf, plus 4 other guys. One is French, Japanese, the others are French, but very specialized in ocean matters, economy, technical solutions, energy, food, transportation, logistics, etc., etc. So it's a long story. For me, it's like a crusade. I mean, I don't know if I will see the result before my death, but well, we'll see. But I mean, this is also a philosophical and a scientific project. And for me, there are many sources of solutions to the next challenges and stakes of the world.
That is really amazing. Your story and your inspiration and your life-changing experience is really inspirational in terms of how you arrived at this priority and this project. You'll be interested to know that Rutger will be one of the next guests on the podcast. I was actually on the founding team with Blue Frontiers that came to Tahiti. The reason I was asked to be on the initial Seasteading Institute team and then part of the Blue Frontiers founders was to articulate the message to the president of French Polynesia and his cabinet about what the opportunities and benefits were with the blue economy, with the development of these regenerative marine infrastructure technologies, how this could offer opportunities to young Polynesians with technical backgrounds that were staying in Europe and not returning because there were not opportunities beyond cleaning toilets at five-star hotels. My inspiration coming from public-private partnerships for green, clean, and smart cities, and then learning about seasteading and blue economy and blue technology, and of course the overlap between those regenerative or sustainable technologies, is when I really shifted over to less of the political and to a certain extent the philosophical side, but certainly less of the political and economic system side of the seasteading movement, and more to the fundamental infrastructure and technologies which, practically speaking, need to exist and predate any true ocean-based community. And French Polynesia was a good example where we had to make a commitment to having a net positive impact on the ocean ecosystem in order to be considered for the project to start with. I'll remind our listeners that all of your materials will be available with links, any other links that you want to include on a web page. During the pandemic, after I had formed Deep Blue Institute, I decided to move back to my hometown of Nouvelle-Orléans. And certainly this is an area of the country and the Gulf Coast that is in desperate need and really needs to be focusing on these things. So similar to your vision for France, our vision at Deep Blue Institute and now Deep Blue Academy is how can we create the economic systems and the technology development pipelines from early stage through exponential scaling, which needs to happen in the case of these technologies, particularly related to carbon sequestration and algae bloom control and all those sorts of things, and coastal resilience. How can we create a center of excellence and a global source of these solution sets using the Gulf Coast as a living laboratory for the development of these technologies?
Why I wish to create this foundation is also to be free of to think, but also to take care to not duplicate the numerous mistakes of the men on Earth, on the land, I mean. This is very important. Otherwise, it would be just another failure of the humanity. So
Agreed. So the phases and all that you talked about, the three categories, 333, is that what you talked about before, or is that different?
No, at the beginning, I was talking about three phases, macro phases. First one is the research and innovation phase. The second one is the prototyping, in situ prototyping. And then the third phase, which will happen in the base case 2033, 4035, will be a more global deployment, okay, with people truly living on the waters. If you make a kind of extrapolation at the end of the century, consider that there is a true deployment with a growing maturity of this way of living, these technologies and so on. And if you take also into consideration how many people are fed by an agriculture in France, you manage to get a very interesting insight, which is Indigo Civilization could feed more than 2 billion people at the end of the century. So it's very interesting, and you can easily understand all the potential of such an analysis and research.
Do you have some favorite statistics or milestones or benchmarks in terms of what the potential is, what the problems are, what the potential is?
So the potential, there are a lot. And the problems, the issues, I will start with the population. By 2050, humanity and the whole Earth will face critical issues, especially as the world population will grow by 26% compared to now. And so the need for accommodation would increase accordingly. In addition, 50% of this population will be concentrated within 100 kilometers of the coast. And so there will be definitely a scarcity of space. And in addition to that, between 3 million and 1 billion people would see their terrestrial environment flooded. And then we will have also, and on the opposite, we will have also a scarcity of fresh water. According to the IPCC, 50% of humans would suffer from chronic water stress. Another statistic from Blue 21, so from Rutger, 22 million square of additional arable land would be needed to feed the population in 2050. And this is about the size of North America. So the pollution, the energy supply, the need would increase by 68%. Well, a lot of things like that creates collateral threats. Migrations first, famine, malnutrition, and then potentially wars and conflicts, disease, etc., etc. So it's a kind of vicious circle. You know, this is very interesting because this morning I read a news about the French Ministry of Environment, and it stated that finally, during years, we considered that the targets given by the UN would be respected. I mean, a growth of 1.5 degrees. And finally, they realize now that a more realistic forecast would be plus 4 degrees, which is not the same story at all. So there is no emergency to speed up thinking about new solutions, because there are millions of people shouting and launching alerts everywhere, but very, very few giving opportunities of or solutions to achieve great things. It's like a good wine. You don't make a good wine in 6 months. It takes time, and yes, it's a kind of empiric process. And well, this is what I try to achieve. But I'm very humble because and I'm very proud, I would say, not of my work, but very proud to be joined to please experts and scientists. Wow, for me, this is a very great achievement. I hope I will manage to go far, far beyond. But already, this is something I'm really surprised about, this global evaluation.
One of the key concepts that we think about at Deep Blue Institute and Academy is innovation ecosystems. As you talk about, what are the ecosystem of ideas and support that can facilitate these final solution sets? Is that sort of ecosystem approach part of the Indigo Civilization project as well?
Yes, indeed. And I would say that also, as I'm listening to you, I think that maybe one day it could be very interesting to share our learnings, because what you will achieve probably in the future in the Gulf of Mexico could be also interesting for the whole project. I mean, my project, my vision is called the Indigo Civilization. I don't put the name ocean or seas in the title, but on purpose, because for me, this is more, how do we think in another way to live in harmony with nature in a sustainable way, but always with featuring a progress for humanity? Because I'm sure of one thing, really one thing, the humanity won't accept to a regression. I don't believe in that at all. And for me, to solve such kind of issues requires also to sell a progress to humanity. Otherwise, it will never happen. People will never forget their comfort to have hot water at home, their mobile phone, the connection, full-time connection, etc. So for me, how do we make the whole world move forward and progress? But it cannot be what the politics try to tell us, or the UN, we need to consume less, etc. Of course, we need to consume less. There is a new paradigm to think, but okay, we consume less, but on the other side, we earn new things. And this is something that has to be fought. Otherwise, and this is very important, that this project is focused with a humanist point of view and not only a profit point of view. This is why I start with a foundation.
In your vision for the Indigo Civilization, do you see particular opportunities for globally underserved populations and developing economies?
Of course. Actually, I said before, I love my country. And I don't know if this is the right words in English, but in the past, we called France the country of the lights a few centuries ago, and which means a philosophy of progress, of humanism.
The age of the Enlightenment came out of France.
This is probably the right word. And I think about this, and in France, we are lucky because we are pretty rich, okay, one of the richest countries in the world. We are in peace. We have tens of thousands of scientists. We have a wonderful playground. And so, yes, this is an opportunity for the country to raise a kind of national ambition. This is what I regret when I actually listen to the news less and less because I'm fed up. Because for me, the governments are playing with fine-tuning a few parameters, but finally there is no true great ambition. You know what I mean? And I learned one thing from my marketing background. If you want to be successful, you need to make people dream. To make people dream, it doesn't mean that you have to fool people, but you have to make them dream, to give enthusiasm, to energy, the positive energy, and then it works. And we see that, unfortunately, the time when I see that is during the Football World Cup or things like that. But this is, you see what I mean? You see what I mean? And then you see this national ambition. I don't know in the US what it would be, maybe for the basketball, I don't know. But and when the cup is over, it falls down. This national ambition, yes, to answer your question, in my opinion, it should serve the whole world. I mean, I was talking about the small island states. I mean, this is a first obvious target, but also many countries in Asia. One of my co-founders, he lives in Singapore, and over there, they are, of course, much concerned about the rise of the sea level, for instance. Really, there is a philanthropic idea behind that, meaning that we need now to invent also a new paradigm about what value means. Now it means money. Even though if you meet people during a dinner or a party, I don't know, and you introduce yourself, and your value is defined according to your position in the society, your job, or the level of income you have, or your car, or, it's still like that. And actually, this is wrong, and it doesn't work like that into the nature. The value of animals is defined completely in a different way. And I know this is more an utopia, to be honest, but let's say in a few centuries, maybe it will happen. Okay, it's a long process. But the Indigo Civilization means also features, values such as courage, boldness, and open-mindedness. This is why I call it like that. So yeah, it's a new way, also a new behavior in the world. But in that sense, in that perspective, this project is supposed to serve all the living beings in the world. Not only the human, by the way. For me, it's like in a team. The union creates the strengths.
I'm self-identifying or identifying who are the people like ourselves around this very tiny planet that we need to work together and to align these philosophies and these technologies and the scaling of these technologies. Because certainly what I talk about is all of the basic technologies that we need to realize the Indigo Civilization, they exist.
Yeah.
They're just not scaled.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of things exist already. So it's like a puzzle, You have a lot of parts everywhere, but how do you combine it to make it beautiful and harmonious? This is it. And this is this is my great skill, to have the capacity to combine different things that are not supposed to fit together, but to imagine a new solution. And afterward, I'm not I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert, and I don't have any big legitimacy in, regarding oceans matters and things like that. But I don't care. I mean, I'm passionate, and I give what I have for my energy, and I give it for free, by the way. My energy, my belief, my faith. For me, this is wonderful because I learn and I meet new kinds of people, like you, for instance. And yeah, this is very fresh. And you know, when you are stuck into the business, finally you become cynical, and the margin, the profit, the figures, etc., etc. And yeah, I don't want to become like that.
The aspect of this that I really enjoy, and I think I have some particular insight into, is how do these systems fit together in systems of systems, and how do we create solution sets to deal with the very complex mix of problems that are environmental and social and political and financial and all that we need in order to realize something like the Indigo Civilization.
Yeah. It's like a toolbox, you mean, available to anyone, kind of open innovation afterwards. And then, it would be great to be at the starting point of this, to this finally surprising belief that it is possible to live on the sea in a great way. This is what I want to click, to make it acceptable and I would say sexy even. Of course,
absolutely,
it's a tough environment. It's scary because we don't know. We are always afraid of what we don't know. But I'm fond of mountaineering in the Alps, especially, and I see great achievements in terms of infrastructures on top of peaks. This is crazy what the man is capable to do, and if you consider also what we are capable to do on the investments which are made to go in space. I mean, this is also a wonderful thing. So the humanity is capable from the best and the worst, I would say.
The things that we talk about at Deep Blue Institute, and now particularly with the Academy as it relates to education, is the philosophical change that you talk about. So working with all generations and, K through 12, as well as university and vocational schools, and thinking about reshaping a society that in the coming decades in these regions like the Gulf Coast will be future generations that are growing up with a philosophy and a mindset that their relationship with the ocean, ideas of living on the water, of aquaculture and mariculture, and realizing the food harvesting opportunities that you're talking about, while also cleaning the ocean and solving problems like the algae blooms, that all of those things become fundamentally second nature and an internal part of the way they interact with the world in a regenerative manner.
Yeah, to break the barriers, exactly, to be capable to go beyond the frontier given by our society, nowadays society. Yes, this is also something I wish to develop, the relationship with engineering school, but not only, why not also sociological schools, or to give the idea, to make inception, like Jules Verne did with me when I was a child. At the beginning, I wasn't convinced, but finally, eventually, this is cool. You see what I mean?
Absolutely.
But this is a transversal discipline. So I get your point, and this is ambitious but clever. But it's a long process, so I'm moving step by step.
Well, ambitious but clever, I think, is one way to summarize one of the ways to move forward on these sorts of big global ideas.
Yes,
Frédéric, thank you so much for joining us on the Blue Economy Primer. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and I'll certainly look forward to continuing the conversation and finding ways that we can collaborate and support each other's work.
Of course, it will be a pleasure. Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure for me to have this chat.
Thank you for joining us on the Blue Economy Primer. If you enjoyed today's podcast, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Please help us spread the word, and be sure to visit our website at www.deepblue.academy, where you can find all of our available episodes, access important links and supporting information for each episode, send us your comments and/or suggestions for potential guests and topics, get more information about our community engagement initiatives, and join our mailing list, as well as make a much appreciated tax-deductible donation to support our nonprofit education and research mission. Thanks again to the Dan Lucas Memorial Foundation and the Pontchartrain Conservancy for their critical financial and institutional support. Until next time, when we meet again on the ever-expanding horizon of the blue economy.